Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. Hey y'all, if you are new here, I am Shelby of Shelby in the Book Club, and in today's video we are going to talk about Perfect Peace by Daniel Black. The last book review that I did was actually Don't Cry For Me, as you can see it up there, by Daniel Black, which I loved, which led me down a rabbit hole of David Black books. So if you would like to hear about Perfect Peace and how I felt about it, then here you go. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, and make sure you comment. I'm really enjoying talking to you guys here. I don't think y'all realize how much it means to me when y'all comment and we have interaction. So please make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. And here we go. Perfect Peace. Where do I begin with this book? So it took me a while to get into Perfect Peace because life has been whooping my ass. For a lack of better words. I am behind on a lot of things, a lot of personal stuff going on, and trying to get myself back into a good mental health space has been a little difficult, but I'm getting there. So it took me a while to get through this book. I'm going to be very honest with you. And it was worth every bit of stress and anguish and anger that it put me through. It was worth every bit of confusion. But there were a couple of things that I didn't like about the book, and I'll get into that in a second. So Perfect Peace is about the Peace family. They are living in, where do they live? Somewhere in the South. I feel like it's Arkansas, which I call Arkansas. But we're gonna leave that be. We're gonna leave that be. Yeah, I think it's Arkansas. I was about to say Arkansas again. I think it's Arkansas. So the Peace family, it's Gus Peace, who is the daddy, and there is Imogene Peace, who is the mama, and they have 6 boys. And Imogene has wanted a little girl for as long as she can remember, right? And I think as a woman, that is a natural desire for us. I know for me personally, as long as I have a healthy baby, someday, one day, if I am blessed enough, I'll be good. But if I was able to get a little version of me in girl form, with my face and some big curly hair, I'd be super happy. So I feel like that's a natural thing to want, right? Like as a woman. Gus, they kind of Daniel, he depicts Gus as someone that is not very smart. And it takes place in the 1930s and 40s and the 50s, where a formal education was not necessarily a necessity. So like some of the children went to school, some of them did not. They didn't make it to, they didn't finish elementary school, let alone getting to high school and all that kind of stuff. So Imogene gets pregnant again. Gus is upset. That's kind of how the book opens up, whereas Gus is just like, I don't know how this heifer got pregnant again, but I'm sleeping on the floor until further notice because I don't want no more babies. Which I feel like is his right as a man. He can say that. But Imogene was very dead set on having a girl. So she gets pregnant. It's time to deliver. And it's her and the midwife in the room, and the baby comes out head first, obviously, unless it's a breech baby, but baby comes out head first, and the midwife, Henrietta, comments on how beautiful the baby is. Like, oh, maybe it is a girl because this baby is pretty, like already, and this hair that the baby has, like this is a pretty baby. But lo and behold, it's a boy. And Imogene loses her mind for a split second, and she decides that she knows some business of Henrietta's. So Henrietta is going to keep her secret because that is a little girl named Perfect. It's not actually a boy. So Imogene decides to lie, and she holds this lie up for 8 years, right? And the book goes on into Perfect's life. It gets to a point where Perfect turns into Paul because her mother has to hit their, that's the part that was kind of screwing me up throughout the book. Like, with the knowledge that I have of today with pronouns and how we address people and so on and so forth, I want to refer to them as a them, they, because I feel like gender was forced on them in a way, but we'll talk about that in a second. So we follow the entire family and how this lie affects not only the family but the community, right? So a few different things happen. Some things that stood out to me. So when Perfect was still a girl, she was playing with who becomes her best friend. Why can't I call her name? Eva May, right? And they would go under the house and they would play house. Like, Eva would be the daddy and Perfect would be the girl. And, you know, they would kiss and do all this stuff as kids. And they were exploring each other's bodies, which made me very uncomfortable to read. But it brought up to me a couple of things. One, that children are always watching us. They are way smarter than we give them credit for, which is something that I've spoken about before, but they are way smarter than we give them credit for, and they are always watching, because as they were having this dynamic of what house is, Eva May would say stuff like, oh, my daddy always, you know, slaps my mama's behind, and daddies are supposed to do this and mamas are supposed to do that, and blah, blah, blah. So it's like the children, things aren't necessarily given to children, right? There are some things that they pick up from us. There are some things that they are just born with, right? I make the joke all the time, like, you think I'm attracted to men because I can help it? Have you spoken to a man recently? You think I'm just doing this out of my own volition? I can't help that they be walking by me and I react. I can't help that, because if it was a conscious thought, I don't necessarily know that it would be a woman, but it would be somebody else, because they are pains in they stress me out, okay? So there are some things that we are just innately, we are attracted to, we are born with, but then there are other things that are given to us, like the ideas and the things that we see our parents doing, right? Another thing that stood out to me was in the entire book, it really challenges the idea of what is gender, right? And how do we as Black people deal with gender? Like, where do we get those ideas from? Because there's this recurring thing in the book where men aren't supposed to be sissies, right? And like, what does that mean? Like, you're supposed to be a man's man, but what is a man's man, and where do we get that from? I think another thing that stood out to me in the book is the Black woman's relationship with men, right? It was interesting to me and very thought-provoking to me that Imogene didn't feel like she can heal herself with her sons, but it had to be a little girl. So we find out that the reason that Imogene is doing all of this stuff is because she was abused by her mother. Her mother hated her. Her mother was very mean to her because her skin was dark, because she wasn't pretty enough. She just, you know, whatever. Which I'm very sure that her mother experienced some sort of trauma, which is why she treated Imogene the way that she did. But because of that, Imogene was very dead set on, I need a little girl to treat a little girl the way that she's supposed to be treated. But why couldn't she love her sons in that way? Why couldn't she love her sons in that way? Why couldn't she treat her sons in a way where they could grow up, but it also could heal herself, because at the end of the day, it wasn't necessarily about Imogene being a girl. It was just she was a child that her mother did not like, that her mother wasn't fit to raise, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? So that was interesting to me, because it brings up the same thing that I feel like Don't Cry for Me brought up, which is the fact that, do we as women see men as beings that deserve love? Were we ever taught that, I should say? Because I think when you grow and you self-discover and whatever, you figure these things out on your own. But are we taught that men can be loved too, and it has nothing to do with them being a sissy or them being not a man or whatever the case may be, but just as a being, can they also as well be loved? So that's something that kind of stood out to me, because I was just like, she ruined, and we'll put that in air quotes, she ruined Perfect / Paul's life because she was chasing something to heal herself. It had nothing to do with that baby. It had nothing to do with the baby. But then it brings up the conversation of, was Perfect born gay, or was Perfect gay because of what their mama did to them? What is that? Where do we come into play with that? Because I don't think that I really have an answer in terms of this book. I think they're obviously, like, Perfect Paul had an inner conflict because they were trying to find their place in the world, right? Where they were very comfortable being a girl. But then they found their place in the world as Paul. I guess in this case, what happened to him was not his fault. But, like, he just was naturally attracted to boys, right? That wasn't something that was, even though the idea that when he fell in love, it was going to be with a man because that's what their mama did to them. I don't know. It's a touchy subject. So throughout the book, like, I don't know, like, Paul gets attacked. He was picked on at school. There was that conversation. I think something else that stood out to me was, I feel like Imogene didn't fight hard enough to protect Paul once he became Paul, or once they became Paul, because her place as a woman. It also talks about her relationship with her father, which I thought was interesting. Excuse me. But again, I think it's overall about how your trauma doesn't only affect you, it affects everybody else too, right? If you let it. But in a time and a place where therapy and all of that kind of stuff wasn't important, I can understand why things went the way that they went. So eventually Paul finds his place. It does talk about his brothers, their brothers. I'm sorry for the pronoun thing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. In their lives, and how they all were different, right? And how one of the brothers, Mr., we find out that he's gay, right? And he was raised, quote unquote, I'm going to say normal, quote unquote normal, because he wasn't traumatized the way that, or he wasn't treated the way that Perfect Paul was treated. Okay. So he was raised as a boy, and he turned out to be attracted to men. That's not something that we necessarily can control. So I think that also brings up the idea of, like, it don't really have anything to do with the parents, right? Like, you can try to instill this manly man idea into your kid, and if they're gonna be what they're gonna be, they're gonna be what they're gonna be. And it's your job to make sure that they are good humans, not, you know, not people that live up to standards that you didn't even create yourself. Things that were pushed upon you that you don't even necessarily understand or haven't really thought about. You were just trying to fit what society, what the other people say in the community, so on and so forth, right? So that was interesting. I think what we can kind of go into the things that I didn't like about the book. I think what I wanted more of is I wanted it to focus more on Perfect / Paul and their perspective and how they felt things, where it was really about the family. I wanted more of Perfect's, Paul's perspective. I wanted more about how they coped in life. I thought what I was going to read was, you know, the first part was going to be about their childhood, them finding out they were really born a boy, how that affects them, and then them trying to grow up, and not necessarily about the entire family. I also thought with the way that it was written, and the way that the father was portrayed, that it was going to come across that he was actually gay. But that didn't happen either. So overall, I'd give the book 3.5, 4 stars. I think it is thought-provoking. I think it's a very important read, especially in today's society where we are still learning everybody's pronouns, where we are venturing out into our sexualities and talking about it more, and it's becoming more of a normal thing, even though we have a long way to go. I think this book is like one of those, it's on the list of things that everybody should read, because I think it'll give you a different perspective. I think it also gives an insight to trauma, right? And how your trauma is not just yours. And it's like, it's your responsibility to heal your trauma so that it doesn't affect your children, right? Because if you don't heal it, in this case with Emma Jean, if you don't heal it, it's going to ruin your children. And that's not fair. It's not fair at all. So like I said, overall, 3.5, 4 star. I am very interested in reading more of his books. I like his writing style. I like that his concepts are different. That is important to me when picking out a book. Like, I want to read things that are different. So with that being said, we're at the end of the video. Let me know in the comments if you are going to read this, if you have read it before. What did you like? What didn't you like? And yeah, I think that's it. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next video. If no one has told you today, I absolutely love you. I think you are kind. I think you are smart. I think you are important in so many more ways than you can actually see in yourself. And I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.